Thanks for hopping on the Code Review Weekly Workshop. Um, I've just got a small thing that I thought was interesting and wanted to encourage with code reviews that are seemingly really straightforward. There's things we can just bring up and talk about, and I wanted to share an example of that. But if anyone else has anything they'd like to add to the agenda, this is a good time too, and then we can pair up on some MR reviews. I have some uh merge requests to review. So I always enjoy getting my work done while we're all on a call together. Um, but yeah, I'll just share this one little example uh, that I wanted to share with you all. So this is an MR that is updating these some of these constants came from a feature or domain specific constant file. But we actually have this GraphQL shared constants file where we put all these GraphQL type names. So I guess this is kind of something that people have been curating while doing more GraphQL stuff is let's just put all the type names in one glorious file. And that's fine. And so we're removing some of the ones that were duplicated and having them reference this file. Some of them are also just like hard coded, like here. And so we're having them reference the constants. So it's really straightforward. But there's a couple of things that I observed looking over this. Probably one, which let me start with this one. So what's tough with all of this is it'd be really nice if there's an automated way to just completely verify, yes, this is a pure refactor, none of the values have changed. But that gets really tough with when we reuse the same constants in the spec. There's not really 100% guarantee that these values match. So when I review this, I kind of have the two things side by side, and I'm just referencing like, hey, is the value of this one the same? Like I'm able to verify this in 5-ish minutes of like, okay, we did the refactoring and all the values matched up. But I did find myself just thinking like, man, I wish our tests, sometimes I wish we just hard coded the values because that's what we really care about. And it'd be nice when we do these kind of things, was it a pure refactor or not? And I get the benefits of not doing that, but I just brought it up. So it's like, hey, anytime I'm thinking, even if it's like a large group unowned thing of like, I wish we had this. That's a great thing to bring up in a code review. And yeah, Kong had uh just said, hey, maybe we should write some docs for it. But I think that this is probably something we need to just discuss. So I ended up just creating an issue just to talk about it. But this is a non-blocking thing. And if this was the only comment, I would have went ahead and just merged this. So, but because of that, I'm going through this kind of refactoring line by line, and I see something else where pre-existingly, that's not a word, but I'm going to use it. We were interpolating part of a GraphQL type into another GraphQL type. And that's not great because these GraphQL types are completely uncoupled. And so like in the backend, this is referenced as CI project variable. It doesn't interpolate any values inside of it. So us doing that on the front end, we're creating some coupling that's not actually there. So even though this is a pre-existing thing, I think, hey, we touched it. Let's try to, this very small thing. Let's just clean this up while we're here. And Kong gets that. So that was helpful. I probably would have leaned more towards let's do this in a follow-up if there had already been some MR fatigue and like we had already gone back and forth on some things. But since this is just the only thing that I observed, and then we're good to go. It's like, okay, this is really small. Let's just take care of this, and then we'll merge this. And so even though this is a pre-existing thing, it's like, yeah, we want to clean up as much as we can. To leave things better than we found it would be great. So that was the only somewhat blocking thing. If Kong had said, and like, hey, yeah, but this is a pre-existing thing, so I don't want to do it, he wouldn't say it like that. I would be fine, but I would hope that we'd realize we just engaged in a back and forth. We could have just done it, So that's I don't mind bringing up comments about pre-existing stuff, especially if it's small, and especially if there's not already a lot of back and forth. The other thing is, here's just a non-blocking question. So this is 100% something I was not anticipating us doing here, but this shared constants file references EE specific types, and I'm just not sure how we feel about that or what we want to do about it. And so rather than thinking about it and me doing a bunch of research on my own, I'm just asking the question. We could just talk about it. And it sounds like Kong was kind of anticipating maybe we needed to just move some stuff. But he is asking of what I thought of doing a follow-up. It's like 100%. That's what we got to do. So after that, we were good to go. And that was it. But I did think this was a good example of, I like to just start non-blocking conversations when we come across code, because code review isn't just an approval process, but it's also how we do collaboration and brings up some good discussions. So, yeah. That was the example I was wanting to share. Does anybody else have any code review questions or things to show and tell?
I haven't received a review for the longest period of time, so I'm just here to watching the.
Oh man! All right.
I could share one that I did recently where I just, hold on, let me see if I can find it. So I can link it. Nope, that's not it. Okay, hold on. I can't remember who it was. I think this is a merge request. I will share some screen. Let's see. Let's share the one that y'all are on for me, and then I'll pull it over there. So this was assigned to me as a database review, which is always very stressful for me, but it's getting less stressful. Still not my favorite thing to do. But what I wanted to show was a conversation that we had. I guess I could show what the MR was doing. It seemed pretty simple. They were adding to a finder the ability to scope the execution method to like specific IDs. And so they added some filtering, and as part of that, originally had added, let me see if I can get a previous version. Oh, please don't. Oh no. Okay, that's not what I want. No. Let me see. I don't know. I did use that dip trick. Thank you, Paul. It was
Nice.
So helpful. It once I figured out how to run it properly in Vim with the right spacing from the last thing, it really, really helped. One of the things that they added as part of that was a new scope with a where clause for IDs. This has since been removed due to the conversation we had, which is why I wanted to show it. Someone asked a question. The previous reviewer asked a question. I'm not sure if we should be using the scope or if a where clause would work here. And so I'm like, well, I don't know. I feel like we typically do recommend using scopes. So I kind of just started looking around the code to see is there a method called for IDs, or like something where there's a scope where we're scoping for IDs?
Yeah.
And I learned something which also helped these two folks learn something. There is an application record class that I think all of our models inherit from, and I did double check, but it has all these scopes that are already like there. I had no idea these existed. And so I thought that was pretty cool. Or like, it's a class method that is essentially a scope. But yeah, I mean, I knew about some of these. So I've used like a safe finder create by. That one's pretty popular. And I'm sure these are in the documentation. With fast read statement timeout, I've used that one.
Wait, did you say you're sure these are in the documentation and are
like
like developer guideline?
probably, yeah, I'm sure somewhere. This one I know is in there. This with fast read statement timeout, I think.
Okay.
And I know there's mention of safe finder create by. I don't know if there's like a specific page that covers all of these helpers, but I know at least some of these are in the docs.
I think that's optimistic of you.
Is it? No. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe. Oh, good. Look. Oh, no, you're wrong. You're right. But some of these are in there. I know.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's in there, or at least this one. One of these is in here because they do talk about, especially the database reviews. Like, I open the guide. So maybe.
Yeah, the bottom there.
Yeah, it's at the bottom. There's also one about plucking IDs. I don't know. There's definitely some, maybe there could be more documentation around these. Because I had to go look to find them. But I thought it was neat. I mean, I often look, I guess when I'm doing code reviews, I'm often going and trying to look and see what exists in their current code to learn, like, A, is this something that's done often? Or B, is there perhaps a different way to do something that might be better that I just don't know about yet?
Yeah.
So I do rely on the docs a lot, especially for the database reviews, because there's this huge list of things you're supposed to check. And also a lot of like rules around the different migrations and how queries are supposed to work. I also, for the life of me, cannot remember how to read explain plan. So I go back and look at that a lot. But yeah, that's an interesting point. Like, it's not really mentioned anywhere. So I don't know how you would like discover.
Well, that's what I'm curious about. What did you search for that?
I searched for IDs, didn't find anything. Then I just started looking for scopes in the code base to see like where scopes were defined, if there were any scopes that were like specifically
so then you're just
for IDs.
Scopes.
Yeah, I just let me I was in review mine. I think I was like scope, and then I put it in the models directory. Models. I was like looking to see if there was any, and I happened to look at that one. It was just by pure luck, probably. Because I think we do this a lot where they're like for projects for this other thing, but I wasn't sure if there was one where we actually had a scope like for IDs.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, that seems really helpful.
Yeah.
Good find.
I don't know how, like, maybe we should open up a documentation page for this. I don't know where it would live, but I'm going to put down a little note for myself to look at, maybe starting one.
It's well, it's hard though, because I
don't know if people look at that stuff either, but like when you're first.
Right. I clearly revealed where I stand on that spectrum.
Well, I really like documenting things, which is, I think, sometimes a strange behavior.
Well, yeah, I think it's good. I think people look to the code first because they're always looking for patterns to follow.
Yep. I definitely did look for the code first because I was like, okay, this person asked this question. I'm supposed to be doing the database review. I don't know the answer. So I'm going to go look and see what's in the code base. Which also, it may not be right, even though it was in the code base, but at least if I'm seeing it like multiple times and I'm like, well, clearly this has made it through multiple types of reviews, then it's probably okay-ish.
Yeah, we just talked about this last week though, is I mean, we do get legacy patterns and anti-patterns can get sticky in our code base and spread that way.
Yeah.
And then it gets to be really confusing to contributors when, and they finally hit a reviewer that's like, hey, we shouldn't introduce code that looks like this. And they're confused because
it's already in the like, well,
exactly.
so here, why was it okay over
Yeah.
here?
So what we concluded, and this is really good, and we should be more diligent in this. Documentation updates are great.
Yeah.
Inline code comments would be really great, pointing to some sort of documentation or pointing to an issue of like, hey, we don't really follow this pattern anymore. Like, don't copy this. But I almost wonder, if we have like a utility and it's like, hey, this utility is really nice, let's increase its usage. I wonder if, are there a lot of places where we can replace some of the custom created scopes?
Yeah.
And if we can replace some of the custom created scopes and create an epic to just like, hey, we're going to migrate everything to this new utility because we can do it and it's there. And that's how you promote usage, is actually increasing the usage. The documentation for utilities would be really great. I think we talked about too on the front end, like using JS stock to generate an actual like, like how Ruby has the cool function part, like you can, what am I talking about?
Oh, like the docs where it's like, here's all the methods and here's.
Yeah, you can search for all the methods and see all their descriptions and stuff. We've talked about doing something like that on the front end. Something like that would be so cool on the back end.
Yeah.
So maybe even just commenting the function really well. And then, yeah, if we had something like that, that would be really nice.
Yeah. The epic idea is interesting for that. Yeah, I might look at that and see if I drop that in the, or like, it almost feels like maybe we don't need a RuboCop, but like the way that we handle RuboCop violations would be done the same way, which is like, there's a long list of stuff and then we invite everyone to contribute and then eventually it kind of fixes itself.
Yep. Yeah. And if there's some people, I don't know if anyone's generated a script by it for it. But like, yeah, you kind of want to create a bunch of issues for a bunch of different of the you can do it by folder, or you can do it by file that finds the stuff. But I love doing this too, because it creates a bunch of issues that can be easily picked up by the wider community.
Yep.
And those are really cool efforts.
I like it. I'll look at that and see if I can
bring it up. Yeah. What's up, Vishal? Were you gonna
I have a very orthogonal topic to this, like, since you all are talking about documentation updates. Let me preface this by saying I don't know Ruby and I've not worked on Ruby much. So when I did get a chance to work on Ruby or 1 or 2 MRs, I did end up starting with the documentation. And what I did notice is I closed it out quickly because there was a lot of things to read. Right. So now I know what the benefit is of documenting it, because otherwise it just becomes tribal knowledge and it just goes when the person is not available and everything. So don't get me wrong, I really appreciate that we are documenting it. But I just wanted to know everyone's thoughts on at what stage do you think it's too much?
Yeah.
The reason why I asked that is because when you all were talking about maybe we should document this, it just kind of reminded me of when I looked at the documentation. I was like, that's a lot to read. I don't want to. I'll just skip it.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I do think you can get too much because we want it.
But I don't know if there's any better way to do it. Let me see that as well.
I think that I think you kind of have to be able to approach the guideline at levels. If I'm at a really high level, let's stay at that level and let's just say what we need to about the high level. And then if I'm in, here's very specific testing practices. I was like, okay, that's great. I'm just in testing land and I'm just seeing code examples. These are a bunch of different testing practices. For describing specific functions, that does sound like we've gotten really too maybe detailed into our developer guideline, where it would be really nice if we then had, you know, that kind of Ruby-esque API documentation. Yes, Vishal, you are 100% correct. That's gonna be a one-day thing. No, I'm not joking. Like the amount of open source work that's being done to replicate ChatGPT means, hey, we can point our own information at it. This is 100% going to happen to the GitLab handbook, because
Yeah, I mean, I feel like would that then allow what's the feature that we have that's like the coding helper? Because that could then be used to be like, hey, this method exists
yeah,
and it could be used here instead of creating the scope. Because, you know, I do agree there's a line for documenting things too much. I struggle when people like write long paragraphs of things, because then I'm like, I don't want to read that. I don't have time, or I don't have like, sometimes I'm not in the mental space where I'm like, I can like read this and digest it. I need it in like smaller chunks. But it's like a balance I want to have between when I'm doing code review, if I want to go search for something in the docs, like it needs to have it needs to be findable.
yeah.
It doesn't need to be a lot, but it needs to be something. And I wouldn't even know what to put in the docs for what I just showed, which is like, there are a lot of helper methods for database in this file, like, but I don't think that would be searchable where someone could find it during a code review. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point too. Like, and I think that's would be the key question, is anticipating someone introducing a duplicate. How do you find we already have this thing? And or how can you do that in the quickest way possible? And Terry, you did the best thing, is like, I'm just going to take a quick look, and then you happen to run into it. Yeah, not many people are going to engage in that quick look. Not many people are going to, if they did, may not run into the example you found. So this is definitely a problem that goes beyond just, a very small scope about filtering with IDs. I think it's worth thinking about, how do we,
or even finding like testing patterns. I work on the global search team. I've just found a testing helper that was written by someone on my team. And they don't work here anymore. So I guess it's almost like that knowledge that like kind of left with them, that this helper method exists. And I'm like, oh, this could help us do testing better.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. I do think, and I'd love to hear what you all think, Vishal, Chad, and Terry. Some of that, like if I've just introduced a new thing that I think will be helpful, we used to do this so much more in front end than I see us doing these days. But we would announce it on Slack, and we would try to give some higher visibility to it. Because the developer guidelines is not a very high visibility place to communicate. But we would, at whatever level it is like, oh, there's a new property to create alert to do this thing now. Everyone just we all use this thing, so be aware of it if you're writing these things.
I think it's a good idea. I didn't post in our channel. I kind of just left a comment on someone's MR in my team, and I was like, I just found this method. Could you use this method to write these tests differently?
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, first I wanted to ask them, because they wrote these very like great tests that test a lot more deeply certain areas of the search code than we have for other areas. But I'm like, oh, this might make it easier.
My recent experience was like the GitLab flavored markdown specification and snapshot testing framework. And I wrote a lot of docs on that. It's like I intentionally kept it like one giant page, because I think that's easier to navigate as developer docs. But like, I'm glad I did, because now the team is splitting. that's going to be, you know, the other team
Hmm.
and them taking it over and Himanshu. And I feel good, like I'm handing over this knowledge. It's not all just in the code. And it's like, here's my vision of this. And then also everything I didn't get done, I have a big checklist of an issue of the things that I wanted to do. It's not spread across issues, but it's at least captured my thinking at this point in time. And also the way I publicized that was I really involved them in it. I asked them for feedback. I was like, do you think this is too complex? Are you okay with this documentation? Can you review this doc updates along the way? And then I also really publicized it by liberally in the MRs in my code. I was like, or in the description of the MR, I was like, this explains everything about this. I'm not going to re-explain it here in yet another MR. You can read this doc and specifically this section of the doc to explain all of the context here because it's a lot and it's nothing to do with anything else anywhere in the app.
Yeah. And I think that's 100% the way to do it, because there's a lot of context to it. And so I was gonna like classify the kind of, and I would like to hear what you think, Chad, like that kind of documentation that seems to be like, this documentation gives context and vision to the thing.
Right. And it's literally like a goals section.
Right.
This is the goals of all of this.
Right.
Here's how we implemented it. Here's what all of these files look like. Here's the scripts. Here's what they do.
I mean, it has implementation plan stuff in it too. It's like, that even just how different that code needed to be warranted, I think, that documentation as well. So it's like, that was 100% the right way to do it. And I'm not trying to say, hey, we shouldn't document things, but what we do at GitLab, it can get too much. Like, we have so many utility functions, we can't document everyone. They're not going to be findable. But I do really like the idea of, why aren't we publishing like API docs? Man, we've talked about this for years. And Winnie actually put together this for us a while ago, but I think we weren't really using it, so we may have turned it off. But having a place where I can,
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like this is something that AI will do sooner than later.
it's gonna happen.
Like, don't you want to use this helper here? Like, totally do that.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be for like what we're doing at GitLab of, hey, we try to document first. We have this huge handbook and huge developer guides, like, so we do have a lot of documentation. It's going to be fantastic because we'll probably shift from documenting for readability and documenting just for the AI to learn everything. That'd be insane.
Yeah. Go ahead, Vishal.
No, I'm just waiting for that. Like, I wish, I feel like there's already something we should have, which would like allow us to train on a specific given of data, right? Isn't the code search, I mean, the incubation engineering person released something about the AI assist, right?
Yeah, so I think they're doing I'm not sure what models they're using, but they're probably using like the Codex model that's trained on a lot of
it's already a trained model
programming stuff. So it's very programming specific. I'm excited about
based on too.
Right. And I believe it is. But yes, we do have a code assistant incubation engineering thing that's, I think they already have a integration with our VS Code extension. So
there's incubation engineering, but it's also a specific AI assist as a specific category.
Right.
And I think the code assist incubation engineer may not be here anymore after.
Oh wow.
Ouch.
But yeah, Monday I'm gonna sit on this panel for new programmers, and like the topic is like, is AI gonna take our jobs? Is there any is there any point in trying to become a developer nowadays? So that should be fun. I'll have some opinions.
Funny.
This is how much I know about AI and ML, right? I just said I feel like there should something be already be trained. It should be so easy.
It's like at the beginning, you wrote machine code, right? Like it was barely a level above binary, right? You were moving around memory, and then there was, there was languages like C, and then higher level languages, and then frameworks like Rails. It's like you're writing English like higher level abstractions. And I think the next thing is like, okay, you need to be an engineer for your prompts for AI to be able to effectively control the AI to do what you need it to do. It's just yet another higher level of abstraction, which they
I'll be
never.
When you put it like that, it sounds like yes, it is definitely going to happen.
It's
Yeah.
just another framework, right? It's like JavaScript and then like Vue, and then this is another thing on top of that.
I'm gonna be so sad when I'm not writing code and I'm writing AI prompts. And it's like, oh, I gotta tweak my AI prompt. Oh, there's a bug in your prompt. Let me debug it for you. I will be.
I'm going to open up a bakery before that happens.
Open up a good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Ugh.
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes left. Do you all want to hop on a code
Yeah,
review?
let's do some of your work. Come on.
Thank you. All right. I love it.
Painting this fence is so fun.
So let me see. Yeah, these should be good. I'll go ahead and share my screen so that we can pick one. All right. This is one I've already started reviews, probably needs to just be merged. So we can hop on it. This one is a customer's MR. That's a private repo, so I don't know if I can do that on the recording. This one I started review, and it probably just needs to be merged as well. This is also a customer's one, and this is just a very straightforward web ID updating the VS Code fork. So yeah, how about hopping on this one at the bottom of the list? Okay. Anytime. So this is now cycle 2 of I left one round of comments, but I think it's gonna be ready to merge. But I always say I'm looking at this whenever I start looking at it. So I'm wanting to see what was my previous comment was. Yes, this spec was very underwhelming, to say the least. There's a lot of testing gap, and we weren't introducing anything new here. We were trying to just replace one component with another. But it's like, okay, we're touching the spec now, and the unit test has a lot of missing coverage. We should probably do it. And while doing that, I put together a patch to like, here's just how we could approach improving it. But while doing that, discovered that there's kind of a quirk with one of the computeds that we were setting, which affected a prop we were passing down. So let's see the state of it now. And I will use the diff of diffs tool. Let me open up a new terminal. Let's go to the GitLab project. Okay. I'm going to go ahead, and when I left this comment, we were at this SHA. but now we are at this one. So we'll use the diff of diffs tool to see what's going on. So I'm gonna pass in the diff from master to when I last looked at it. This is the original diff. And then I'm going to curl the most recent diff. Okay, great. Yes. So this is new line we're adding, but you see on the on this side, this is the little bit that we need to change to fix our computed was previously would return a string of undefined, which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And then this is all of the test. Yes, this is all of the test updates that I was suggesting we'd make. And so, yeah, we just touched those two things. So I'll now actually, I don't really enjoy reading diff of diffs as much. I kind of just get a high level understanding of what has actually changed here. But I'll go ahead and take a quick look once more time at it, and then we should be good to go. Let's discard everything here. Yes, git apply. All right. Here's our dropdown. We're using this fancy thing now. Yes, we've looked at this. Nothing's changed since I looked at that, which is good to know. Nothing changed at that since I looked at it. This is the test suggestions I planned, and I'm just going to take a quick look. We're rendering it. Doesn't emit anything. Selected. And then when we're already selected, show selected. Yeah. All right. I think because I have some context here, I don't need to re-review it from scratch. I think we're good to go. So I need to resolve threads. All right. Here we go. Thumbs up. Approving. All right, we got to put in a GIF in here. I like this.
I always wondered how are you storing your GIFs? How it makes more sense because every MR review of yours has a GIF.
Yeah. Every once in a while when I'm really bored, I would say honestly, is when I'm really bored, I'll like, okay, let me go find a new GIF to use here. But I have a folder of GIFs these are my favorite ones that I'll use for these all the time. All right, cool. Let's get it going. I remember testing this too, so I have high confidence this works out, and I don't need to test it again. All right. I need to start a pipeline before I can.
Do you check that every time?
The
edit commit message? Just curious. Yeah. I need to start doing that more often.
Yeah, we kind of do need to because like we got to watch for the change log. Often I'll have to change the change log if it's
like on a later commit, like someone said, oh, you didn't add it. So they go and add it not on the first commit.
Or they oftentimes it will have a change log, but it's behind a disabled feature flag, which means it shouldn't have a change log. Or it has a change log and it says like added when it really should be fixed. Like it's all this stuff. So it's like kind of, I don't know how clear it is, but this is somewhat of the maintainer responsibilities is to double check that squash commit message needs
sure it is mentioned.
Let's check it out. Let's check out the docs. Actually, better yet.
Yeah, actually, I guess I never.
GPT.
All right.
are GitLab maintainers responsible for checking the squash commit message? I.e., is the change log entry correct?
I wonder if we can literally ask all GitLab specific questions by saying, is GitLab? Oh, come on.
Okay, yeah, it's not. It knows the answer. It knows the
I
answer.
see.
It's just holding back on me. It's
It's just being
Well,
pricey.
that was a pretty accurate answer.
Yeah,
was.
it says like it is the responsibility of the author, but the maintainer should also check it. But ultimately is responsibility of the author.
Yeah, I wonder what our docs do say about it. I'm gonna look at it real fast. But yeah, so this is a change. Yeah, this is all good. Yep. Whoops. All right. Cool. Thanks. That's helpful. Yeah, we got just one more minute. So let me check our searching it for maintainer code review. Commit message.
It says you are encouraged to select a commit with more informative commit message before merging. But I don't see anything else that would.
When merging should only use if the author has.
Yeah, and then like right at the bottom of your screen is what I was reading. Which is for merge requests that have had it set. You're encouraged to select a commit with more informative commit message before merging.
Yeah, I would say it's not clear, but I run into it all the time where the
Yeah.
change log isn't right. We used to, I wish there is a lot of robustness that we lost by moving changelog to the commit message than we used to have the changelog files. I used to be able to leave comments on the changelog of being able to say, hey, this actually should be this. And it didn't matter what the commit message was.
Yeah.
I don't think we still respect reverting. If we have a changelog, but then I've reverted that commit, I don't think our changelog generation will understand that I reverted the change. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it would be a removes change instead of an adds, right? If you
Right.
revert-
But then what shows up at the docs the changelog,
Oh.
we added the feature, we removed the feature.
Yeah.
Like it would be, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if it made it into master, that's the appropriate thing. Like it was there and now it's not. That's
Yeah.
the log.
Yeah.
Wait, is a revert MR supposed to have a different change log than?
Normally no, like it just
Removing a
says
feature, it should, if it's removing a feature, it should have an appropriate one that you're removing.
Oh, okay, so it's different than a revert. Okay.
Well, it could be a revert, but you should amend the revert message to have the correct changelog entry, which would be removes
Right.
whatever, if it is removing some previously delivered
Yeah.
functionality.
but it could be interesting because it can even be rather than adding, which clearly has the opposite of remove, sometimes it's just changed. Or fixed. And it's like the fix actually didn't work. So it's not clear.
Unfixes.
On fixes. Yeah. All right. Anyways, thanks everybody. I'll catch you all later. Bye.